What began as a quest to find and purchase, no matter its state, my Range Rover that I sold 30 years ago, has led me to this. Sleeping the night, curled on the back seat, to be woken by the Australian bush calls and being reacquainted with the familiar smell of gear oil. This series of videos is that story.
Got to cut the bloody steel case.
Repent, the burning bush. Leading the charge this morning is Pete. With the help of Stuart, they're going to be doing the suspension, replacing all of the bushes and the shock absorbers. As for me, well, I have two things to do. When it comes off the lift, I'll be checking out the cooling system, which is a bit of a concern. If it's been well maintained, that'll be fine. If not, it'll be rotten and need a lot of work. Day two of the restoration. This process for me has been a massive, just a flood of nostalgia and trying to remember how I solved various problems. And at first, very, very intimidating, and now far less so because I think I've got some experts that are helping me out here. Today, continuing with the suspension. Yesterday, we managed to do the brakes. We replaced the rotors and pads in the front. We're now continuing with the suspension. We might finish the suspension today, pretty good chance, and then we'll get on to the engine. But I just walking underneath the vehicle yesterday, remembering so much, so many familiar things, and so many familiar questions. I also have another task, and that is to set the vehicle up and prepare it for my trip in terms of keeping cameras rolling on the way, no matter what happens. I'll get to that a bit later. And you might be thinking at this very moment, oh, I've bought a rust bucket. It's a lot of surface rust, but it's surface. There's only one piece that I can find where the rust has actually eaten the metal. It's all on the surface. So yeah, in order to get it in really good shape, one would have to strip it down completely, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do that, maybe in the future. But this, although it looks terrible, it's not terrible. It isn't. It isn't. And the areas like this that are vulnerable to rust, there's no rust, hardly any surface rust, even.
It's a beautiful thing. Let me just push that back. Let me go for a second. Line these up.
Now that the engine is accessible, I can check out the cooling system. On the face of it, things look quite good. The condition of the coolant itself will tell us a lot. They feel good, don't they? Those hoses.
They're not that old.
And these aren't that old either. These ones here?
Yeah.
These don't feel old. If there is the least sign of corrosion, that means replacing the radiator and the water pump.
Who's this?
Wow, this is really good.
Not many people.
It's green. Not a trace of brown in it.
Yeah, so just looking in there, you can see the
That's the way it should look.
yep, coolant's in good nick. You can see the cores running across the radiator. They haven't got no calcium build up enough on them, so I reckon this coolant system's in pretty good nick.
What do you reckon? Replace the radiator? I mean, I can't see anything wrong with this. But a radiator that's 40 years old, surely, even with inhibitor.
Yeah, it's definitely in good condition. You can see the condition of the fins. There's no rot in the radiator whatsoever.
No.
And it's had inhibitors and coolant in it.
It's a bit
Obviously
dirty
most
on
of
this
it's
side.
light.
On the inside, it's a bit, but you see what I mean? Inside there.
Yeah, tiny bit. Yeah, it's up to you for peace of mind and security. I mean, while we're doing belts and bits and pieces, we can always drop it out and put a new one in.
It's quite, and it's not a particularly difficult job, is it?
Nah, it's 2 bolts, a couple of hoses, and they're just located by 2 pins in the chassis.
That's right.
Yeah,
Pins out.
lift
Yeah.
it straight out. You'd know, you've had one out a few times in the past.
Yeah, when I smashed the front of mine, I had to rebuild the whole thing.
Yeah.
I actually even had the fan, put it in a fire because it was bent.
Oh,
The radiator
righto.
went straight into the fan,
Yeah.
and hammered it straight. Got it nice and hot and hammered it straight because I was worried about it cracking.
Get it cherry, yeah, and panel beat it.
That decision will be easier to make once the final cooling system pressure test is done. And I have a bit of time to think about it while they finish up the suspension. Working on a Range Rover's engine is nothing new to me. During the 8 years and 8 months that I owned mine, it performed many tasks, including supporting my love of sailing and later a love of flying. I worked her hard and took her on many expeditions, including one to Botswana in 1988. That's a story I've got to tell you, and I'll do that on my way to Perth.
Carrying about 226 litres of fuel, and the car is taking a hammering. The roads have been absolutely terrible.
And off-road club competitions.
And we'll come back later when I think of a few more excuses why I screwed up totally on that section. Let's drink.
But of all the work she did for me, the most memorable was the day I destroyed the engine. I used it to launch a yacht that 3 friends and I had built. But unknown to me, the differential lock actuator vacuum pipe had come off. So while it was deep in the water, water was being sucked into the engine. It destroyed all of the crankshaft and camshaft bearings. Here is the bearing cap, with evidence of sand grains having cut through the white metal down to the copper. I did all the rebuild myself. Before I left home, I prepared for the trip. I'm not going to be camping or anything like that, but what happens if I have a breakdown and I'm in the middle of the wilderness and I need to effect repairs or ask for help and I might be stranded? So I'm going to get some very, very basic support equipment in the vehicle. And I thought to myself, well, I might be staying at hotels and charging batteries every night for the shoot. What happens in the car? I need to be able to charge camera batteries. So I bought myself the National Lunar battery box, Heine Klarman's version of it. And I have a Amtron lithium battery. Thank you, Amtron, for donating the battery. Amtron supply me with my troop carrier batteries, and I use them in my clients' vehicles because they're very good value for money batteries. I like them a lot. And so that bracket goes in like that, and then the battery goes in like that. So this will also power the Snowmaster fridge, which is down there. Asked them for a 40 litre, which will be the I'll actually keep that in my workshop. I actually want a cool drink beer fridge in my workshop at my home, and it'll run off the solar power that powers the workshop. And so when it's not sitting in the back of the Range Rover, this fridge will be my fridge in my workshop. Connecting this auxiliary battery means running a fairly heavy cable all the way to the start battery. I've already made up the cable with an inline fuse. Pre-made, straight to the battery, fuse in there, and connect it to the other side, but we're going to have to probably drill a hole in the floor plan.
Pull this back on and I'll get the pressure tester out.
Time now to pressure test the cooling system. It has to hold its pressure, because if it doesn't, I'll just have to fix it then.
15 psi. Cap should hold.
Oh no, it's not holding! What are we going to do? Try changing the pressure cap. It didn't work. You mean from a leaking heater hose?
Heater core. 9 pounds, Stu. I thought that would have been 16, 18 psi, but it's not holding. So that cap,
It's better now when we've taken it off,
yeah,
cleaned it a bit and put it back. That's the best cap.
yeah, it is. It's sealing better. That's right. So it's holding reasonably good pressure. Not ideal 15 psi, which we would like, but very slight crack in the header tank.
Aha! We've found the reason for the pressure drop. It's a hairline crack in the brass header tank.
Where we could feel the air coming out. You see the bubbles appearing there in the header
Yeah,
tank?
that's why I said thought I felt it. Right,
Yeah.
there you go.
It's got a crack.
I don't know if you're filming that, but you're now filming
The ground. You feel it down there.
Well, it's more interesting. So this is the first thing we found that we can't actually repair here or sort out with the box of spare parts that was supplied to us. So we have to find another way.
That's okay. We might have to just whip this one out then and get it bronzed up. Just thought I'd try my luck with you guys. You never know. He's got some weird and wonderful things out the back sitting under all the dust. Yeah. No, that's it. Legend. Thanks, bud. Cheers.
Being brass, we can repair it.
There's a hairline crack right through there.
Had it been plastic, like modern ones, we would have to replace it. Ideally, we would send it away to have it silver soldered. But instead, ordinary solder will do, and that I can do myself. Not a pretty sight. Then again, we're not trying to make it pretty.
See if it makes any difference with this cap.
Once it's cooled, it's time to test my repair.
Well, actually, you know what? That repair is holding, but now that repair's holding, we've just got a slight leak just at our fitting here, which is fine. But there's no leak there where we've done the repair. None at all. It's not the most prettiest thing in the world, but it'll work.
Radiator.
I think it's a good radiator. The cooling system's been really well maintained in the car, so I don't think there's any reason to change that whatsoever. Same as the water pump. You can just tell by the condition of the coolant that it's been regularly serviced and maintained. Oils and things like that we dropped out of this vehicle are surprisingly clean for the age of it, so whoever's owned this vehicle has looked after it, definitely.
I'm almost disappointed that I didn't see, oh, okay, that has to be changed.
Yeah.
Because the cooling system is
That's right,
it's
that's right.
absolutely clean.
We get vehicles come through here with only 100,000, 150,000 k's on them, and the condition of the oils are worse than this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's definitely a good sign. Good clean oils through there. We dropped them anyway, just in case. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, surprisingly, yeah, it has been well maintained, looked after.
And oil and water pump as well.
Yep, yep. I don't think there's any need to change any of that. I don't think you're going to have any issues whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
If I do, can I have a shot of you saying, I don't think you'll have any issues whatsoever, then I'll put an echo behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Done.
With a long shot of the car with the bonnet open.
As long as you
Alright,
don't
we'll
use
do
that
that.
against us later when you break
Well, there you
down.
go. If he breaks down across the nullarbor due to cooling system failure, I will come and help old mate for free.
Just if you do break
Alright,
down,
I'm sold.
mate,
I'm sold.
if you do break down, make it near an airport.
Yeah, I will. I'll remember that.
Yep.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. So let's talk alternator. Right. That's the one they supplied.
Yeah.
It's a 65 amp, which is about same as standard.
Should be
You're
same.
saying that that's not the Lucas alternator.
No, that's right. It's not a Lucas alternator, so someone's replaced it with a better quality, more reliable unit in the past.
Okay. So now I don't feel a desperate need to change it.
No.
What would you do?
Look, basically all we'll do is we'll run a multimeter over there, make sure we've got about 14.2 volt output.
Yeah.
And if its charge rate is around that, then
good.
golden.
Then
And
leave it.
As long,
And they're quite easy to change over, so I'll have that as a spare.
you
so.
could swap that out on the side of a track in
Yeah,
about 10,
exactly.
15 minutes.
The next system to check is the fuel system and that very noisy fuel pump.
Fuel system, yeah.
Yep, we're definitely going to replace pump and filter.
Okay.
You can see it's been leaking.
So the only part of the vehicle that we've discovered that is actually a bit of a mess is the fuel lines and fuel pump.
It looks like a very old unit, so that might let you down across Nullarbor. So put a brand new facet pump in there, supplied by Britpart.
Okay, good.
Hey,
Yeah.
Just saying, look at the state of the fuel coming out of this old filter. You'll see the colour of it here. Yeah, brown that is.
That is the first thing that we have found that I know for sure would have stopped me in my tracks.
We're lucky we're changing it up.
So what do you reckon about the condition of the fuel tank itself, inside, corrosion and things like that?
Yeah, look, they are prone to rust in the bottom because they are steel tank, and you sort of do need to drain them and flush them every now and then. It all depends again on the person who owns the vehicle, if they run good quality premium fuels or run those cheap like E85s and things like that, which, you know, that fuel breaks down and separates. You can get a lot of condensation built up in the bottom of the tank and rust, and that's probably what a lot of this is, what it's picked up over time. How much fuel was in the tank of this?
It was empty when I got it.
How much did you put in it?
I put 20 litres.
Okay, we can probably crack it and see what comes out, because water will sit on the bottom of fuel anyway.
Okay, I purposely didn't fill it.
Oh, that's all right.
In case we did need it to drain it.
Yep.
It's always very satisfying putting the wheels back on after they've been off for a while.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of work.
You feel like getting somewhere once they go back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a bit of
Close your eyes.
Blown as a whistle, mate. A little bit of rubbish in the bottom, but
Breathe easy.
nothing that I wouldn't have expected. Doesn't even smell stale.
Taste?
No, I'm going to pass, but you're welcome to try it.
And that means the chances of corrosion in the tank low.
It's getting close to knocking off time. We've had a really brilliant day. But just as I am thinking about the evening meal, Pete has a surprise.
What are we?
There's your spare set of keys.
It's the original set of spare keys.
Spare keys, where do you know? Hey, well spotted.
They're covered in mud. So to celebrate the end of Chapter 1, which for me is arriving safely in Perth, I'll give them a good clean-up.
Wire brush.
Day 3 of the build, going brilliantly. Yesterday I thought was a brilliant day, having so much done, and the guys really got tucked in. And it's for those of you who watch my shows from other parts of the world apart from Australia, these guys are true blue Aussies, and the way I know that is that they talk about beer and the drinking thereof quite often, which means they are not imposters. What a great couple of days I've had with these guys. They've taken it completely seriously and just dedicated the whole little workshop. And it's been absolutely brilliant, and I completely trust Peter. He knows his stuff. There's no question that he knows his stuff and is very familiar. And yesterday he was banging out these bushes. We had a burning bush. He was worried that I was going to start going all biblical on him. And we got a lot done. Suspension is now done. All the engine check work is done. All the oil changes are done. We have to do the final flush of the fuel lines and change the last of the fuel filters. Then we're now going to do the final checks on the carburetors. I'm going to refit the air filters, and we're going to do final checks on the running of the engine. Cooling system's done. We're close to being finished, very close to being finished. So what I want to do today also is I brought in a whole lot of stuff that for the preparation of the trip, and I'm going to start installing that into the vehicle. And I think that I'm going to be finished with prep work by the end of today. Let's see how it goes. final phase about to start, and you can see here the emptiness of the box. We're not fitting those rear rotors, don't need to. Clutch we're not going to touch. These steering components, don't need them. There's nothing wrong with them at all. They're still nice and well greased, no play, and just a few other little bits and pieces to finish up. And then mechanically we want to do some very thorough checking, and then we're really ready to give it a run.
The header tank has been replaced, and now a check of the fuel lines and filter comes next.
Just a fuel filter assembly. The filter itself looks very clean. Clean fuel, and yeah, bowl's been cleaned before. So.
More indicators that this Rangy has been well maintained, but we'll put in a new filter anyway. Of course, what is more difficult to determine is how well it's been looked after in the long term. The engine had a rebuild about 6 months ago, but the rest of it didn't.
In the spirit of not fixing anything that isn't already broken, we're just now inspecting the spark plugs to see what condition they're in, and if they look like they've been in the car for a long time, we will replace them, or we won't. Oh, that's nice.
Hasn't been running rich or nothing.
No, that's like perfect.
Burning very good. Put him back in.
On the face of it, its owners have cared for it quite well.
Stop.
We are now running fuel through the lines to see if it's contaminated.
Clean. Clean, clean, clean. Clean, clean fuel. Couple of little bits in it. Nothing really annoying to speak of.
It's good. At least we got that out of the fuel line.
Very good.
Cleaning the battery terminals and attaching the battery cable that I've run to the back. This will run my fridge and camera battery charging equipment on the trip.
So that's a bit of excessive length, because I can now put the battery anywhere I like, and I will probably locate it behind the driver's seat. So I've got plenty of length. All I need to do now is fit the Anderson on there.
We are getting close to an engine run. A new oil filter has been fitted and new oil put in.
Right, go for it. Charge are we getting?
13.6, 5, around that there. And then what we can do is we can time it for a premium. So I'll time it to about 10 degrees advanced to top dead centre.
Okay.
And then we'll run a premium fuel in it. Otherwise, if I time it to 10 degrees advanced top dead centre and you run like a 91 octane,
Yes.
then it will ping under labour.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll tune it to premium. It's a better quality fuel, cleaner burning anyway. So and make more power.
Yeah, almost done. Right, the 40 amp DC to DC charger that will charge the battery in the back is a BC-DC Red Arc 25 amp charger.
Test run time. I've asked Pete if he will drive. He'll have a better chance of hearing or feeling anything out of place from the driver's seat.
String seat themselves.
Oh yeah. What do you reckon my chances are of getting to Perth without having to do any mechanical work?
Yeah, I reckon it's pretty high.
Pretty high.
Yeah. I reckon you'll make it, no worries. Feels good. It's running well. So can't see why not. going to affect the reliability, but it just feels like we need to richen the carbies up a bit. It's got that little bit of a hunties. You can feel it down low in the rev range.
Right.
Yeah. And other than that, no, it's performing great.
So I let Pete drive. I wanted him to feel the knocks and the bumps and everything and tell me if there was anything unusual. There was nothing unusual. In fact, the car ran really well. Apart from the low RPM, it's a little bit rough, and Pete thinks it's running too lean. Going to work on that now. But basically, we're done. I am now going to put in some sound insulation. The gearbox isn't as noisy as my old one, but it's pretty noisy. So I'm going to be doing that. I had that sent up. Car builders in New South Wales sent some stuff for me to do that. I'm going to put that in now and start packing it for the trip. The sound deadening mat goes in first. It's a butyl rubber with an aluminium top layer that's self-adhesive. I've cut it in pieces and laid them down before I stick them.
So supplied in the kit is a knife and a roller and some aluminium tape.
Then I lie a mass noise liner under the carpet. These two together are designed for maximum noise suppression that should kill the LT95's dreadful whine, which was, within days of me taking delivery of my first Range Rover in 1982, the very first task I undertook, using common carpet and underlay. I don't remember it working very well. I feel as if we're wrapping things up. I'd like to take a look at the headlamps, but I think what I might do this evening is head to the motel early, give it a short run, pack it for the trip, and then maybe return tomorrow morning with any things that I feel need doing. I'm a full day ahead of schedule, which means tomorrow I'll have time to sort out some details.
Just about done. Last little upgrade to the headlamps. Because my permits don't allow me to drive at night because the vehicle is unregistered. I'm not expecting to, but there might be an emergency or something. I need to plan for any contingency, so I'm upgrading the globes, but I still want it to look original, so I'm not going to do anything fancy, but the standard lights will be pretty close to completely useless.
Okay, something's wrong. The low-high transfer lever has come loose. We weren't doing anything, we were just mucking about with the carpets.
I was literally minutes from rolling out of here, and the low transfer gearbox has jumped out of high range, and we cannot get back into either high or low range. It's stuck in neutral. I'm going to find out what's going on. Just as well this happened now, and not in a couple of days' time.
Push it forward as if you're going into low. Okay, go back the other way. That shaft
Is retained on this side.
So take it up.
What do you reckon?
The selector shaft that goes through the transfer case is floating now. So it's basically you've got your selector fork and then you select the link, and then when the whole selector shaft floats back, it's missing it like that. So it can't put it into low, put it into high. So it's retained on the left hand side of the transfer case. So we're going to take it up in the air, see if we can sort it out.
And it's an internal, but it's an external linkage problem.
I think it is. I think and the retainer, which is I think just a roll pin, is on the outside as well, so we don't have to go in. See how it's got a hole in there? See how that's been floating? I reckon it's complete. See that? It's missing like a cotter pin and like a spring type washer. And the whole selector fork's just floating back and forward.
Yeah, there's a hole in it.
Yeah, like something meant to be there. Nothing's there.
Yeah. Did you want to get up in there and have a look at that, Andy?
There is the other side where there would be a handbrake.
Yeah.
You can access it.
Yeah.
So that selector is floating back and forward. Push that in, Stu. So we find something to fit on that.
So where is whatever was in it? Or you
No,
reckon
there
it's
never was. We've
never
just
been
been
in
lucky and every time we haven't touched it.
Yeah.
So you guys were the first one to touch it and you pulled the carpet out high low.
Yeah.
So you've disturbed it, so that's why you've noticed the that issue.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Look at that. There's barely nothing in it now.
There you go.
Brand new.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to do it. Oof, that I had visions of us having to pull the gearbox out. Turned out to be a very, very simple solution, one that I could not have done on my own because I wouldn't have known what to look for. Those of you who have owned Range Rovers, well, the early ones anyway, you'll notice something extremely familiar. I don't need to tell you what it is. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about the fact that it is down at the back. You put a packet of peanuts in the back of this thing and the back will start to drop. And the early Range Rover is not a big vehicle. I mean, it's only this high. It's only as tall as I am. It's quite spacious inside because it's very square-sided. It's not a big car by any stretch. And none of the guys thought I would get it all in. But I did. Alright, so last night, thinking about fuel consumption. How am I going to get across and will I need to carry extra fuel? In theory, no, I won't need to carry extra fuel. But I put in 20 litres. Remember? Last time, on the way here, ran out of fuel, almost. Put in exactly 20 litres. Didn't want to put in more in case we had to drain the tank. We've probably spilt a litre on the ground, maybe 2, and a couple of test drives, and it's empty already. I got to do some test runs. I can't know that I'm going to get 450 kilometres to a tank, which is what I got with my old one. And today I actually have a free day. I was going to work on the vehicle all day today, and I had tomorrow, Friday, as the contingency, and it looks like I'm going to need neither. I can't leave early because I've got a meet and greet for my Patreon supporters both here in Melbourne, that's on Sunday, and then on Tuesday in Adelaide in South Australia. So I can't leave early, and I have restrictions with my permits that, I've got to stick to them, so the days on which I am on the road heading west are set. I can't change them. So what am I going to do now? A day in Melbourne.
Maybe it would be a good time to spend trying to do something about the very noisy interior. But first, get some fuel.
And then I'm going back to Rangy Heaven. Might do a few last little checks, but really not much more we can do. And then U-turn here. Say goodbye and then work out what I'm going to do with the rest of my day. Motor is definitely
even better at low RPM. It was almost stalling before. I was battling, that's why I was battling a little bit with it. It kept on wanting to stall at low RPM. It was rough. It's much better now. Morning.
This guy, he's almost taking selfies of himself.
Bit of stuff. One for you. Grab a sticker.
Ahoy!
Thanks, Andrew.
All right. There you go.
Legend.
All right.
Thanks, mate.
Alrighty.
Cheers.
Much nicer to drive.
Is it?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I used to battle at low RPM. I used to have to slip the clutch a bit sometimes to get going because it was so rough and when it was low RPM.
Yeah.
It's much better. It takes off much quicker. I didn't drive very far, as you know, but it's I can feel it's better. I can feel
So just by richening the fuel mixtures up a bit,
Yep.
it's just made it more drivable.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, that's good news. Good news.
So I mean, yeah, that's it. I guess we're done.
Yeah, you reckon that's it? I reckon you should be right. Bit of mechanical sympathy.
Just remember, it's a 40-year-old car that you're driving over there.
Yeah. Yeah, I am guilty of mechanical sympathy, probably a little bit too much.
Well, you imagine if you had to run that to jog across.
You mean like this?
No, I mean if you had to jog that,
Yes.
it's the same sort of
Yeah.
ordeal your car's going to go
Yeah.
through. So if you keep that in mind, you'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, just baby it over there. I think it'll be fine. Yep.
Right. All right. I've got
It's
your phone
not this
number
long.
if I need help.
Yeah.
It's lived this long, so
Yeah, definitely. If you break down halfway across for some reason, give us a call. We'll come out.
All right.
All part of the adventure, eh?
You heard that, eh?
That's it. We've got the support vehicle in there, the Discovery.
Yes, indeed.
But
Okay.
I think you'll be all right. We've pretty much covered all the main things that would have been problematic on your journey.
Yeah.
And all the little things. You've got all the spare parts in the back. You've got some tools now, bits and pieces. I think you'll be fine.
I'm feeling quite confident, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm feeling confident for you, so
yeah,
I think you'll be right. Yeah, 100%.
It's,
The old Ranger would do it.
it's a good example of an old Ranger. So there's no reason why I shouldn't make it.
Having said goodbye to the guys, not 5 minutes later,
Not even 5 minutes. I got fuel, and suddenly heard this very loud cracking sound. From inside, it feels like it's coming from over here. That's not
this is not a good start.
Promising at all. And also, the fuel tank the fuel filler is leaking petrol, and I didn't fill it up. I filled it to 3/4 and it's leaking petrol. I gotta go back to Pete, ask him. Okay. Not what I wanted right now, but better now than in the middle of the Nullarbor. Horrible noise. Sorry you can't get rid of me, but there's a horrible noise from...
After spending 3 days working on her, I'm not 3 kilometers away when a noise has stopped me in my tracks.
Not even 5 minutes. I got fuel, and suddenly heard this very loud cracking sound. From inside, it feels like it's coming from over here. Not promising at all. And also, the fuel tank the fuel filler is leaking petrol, and I didn't fill it up. I filled it to 3/4 and it's leaking petrol. Okay. Not what I wanted right now, but better now than in the middle of the Nullarbor. What began as a quest to find and purchase, no matter its state, my Range Rover that I sold 30 years ago has led me to this. Sleeping the night, curled on the back seat, to be woken by the Australian bush calls and being reacquainted with the familiar smell of gear oil. This series of videos is that story.
It's taken me a total of 12 hours of work to get this far. Take out the floor and the seats and give it a bit of a clean. It's not very clean, but it'll do until we take it out. I've also taken out the steering column for replacement. Horrible noise. Sorry you can't get rid of me, but there's a horrible noise from...
What sort
Sounds like it's coming from this area here. Pretty sure it's engine. Working on old Range Rovers is not unfamiliar to me, and having people help me work on old Range Rovers is also not unfamiliar to me. This was in 1988, and I decided to change the very agricultural LT95 gearbox to another one. Land Rover's newer 4-speed box, not as noisy, just as heavy.
We've just taken the old gearbox out using this bit of pole, just like we've done here. It's hell of difficult to get it out. It's hell of a heavy. This is going to be more difficult though to get in because we've got to align it up, and it's just not a matter of shaking it around like the one we took out. You have to actually align it perfectly within millimeters to get it in. So, what do you do now? Put the gearbox in.
And where's my coffee gone?
I threw it out. It's bone cold. It had scum on the surface.
That's you, man. That's how I like it. I was like saving it up to have this cold scum on top.
And the truth be told, I miss having my mates around to work on old Range Rovers.
How much does that weigh?
160 kilos.
Not that it's no longer a hobby, I still love doing this kind of thing. But having a business running it's not quite the same.
This is definitely lighter.
It's a bit
I'm
light.
telling you it's lighter.
Maybe because no parking time. You've got one here.
You got some foot? Foot that you could take out.
You have sleep on each side. But
This is the old filter for the old gearbox. It's full of steel. There's some quite large bits in here. That's next. This is behind Andrew Johnson. This is the gearbox. This is new.
Andrew, please tell us how you're feeling right now.
Good.
Anyway, enough reminiscing. Got to get this thing back on the road.
When it first happened, it was very loud.
I'm slowing down.
Yeah, I think I was slowing down. I wasn't under high power. Maybe slowing down. It was coming from the engine. It was not transmission.
The handbrake grabbing.
No, and the first thing I did was push the handbrake down. Handbrake was all the way down.
That lever hasn't started to notch out.
Just make sure that sorry, I didn't roll the camera. We went for a drive. It's the fan. The fan inside here was knocking. I feel like an idiot.
And the fuel cap. Since I'm here, ask Pete to take a look.
And it feels soft, like they've possibly replaced it, but it's still not sealing very good.
Maybe we should just give that a clean. I don't know. They never did seal well.
No,
they were never good.
You can take that off, and there is a screw there, and it's under spring tension, so we can possibly maybe give it a, adjust it, give it a bit more tension. Hopefully it'll
Push on there a bit harder.
Yeah, seal a bit better. All we can do is try, but the seal itself is soft. It's been replaced. It's not the original one. They usually rock hard. All we can do is hope and pray. I've adjusted it so it's It's got a bit more force, sort of clamping force now.
Okay.
But,
Without too much fanfare and feeling a little embarrassed, I left, got back on the road. Even though the gearbox noise has been suppressed, the noise in this cab is going to be difficult to live with.
Now the audio recording on the little action camera cuts out a lot of the low frequency sounds. So you are not hearing what I'm hearing. It's being filtered. And I'm now doing 90. It's loud in here. And it's not gearbox. The gearbox is sorted. Engine note only. So I'm going to do a bit of work. I'm trying to sort out engine noise. You can't hear what I'm hearing. I wish you could, but you can't. Very loud in here. I am becoming more comfortable though with the vehicle. The more I drive it, the more. The seats are vinyl. It's not even hot and I'm sweating. So I can't do anything about that. That I'm going to have to just live with. It's a long way.
I kind of sitting here sobering up of what I've done, what I've bought. I think my emotional state at the moment is that I'm very excited I've got myself a Range Rover again. But you know, it's a bit like, you know, never meet your heroes. It's wonderful, and it's bringing back all these lovely memories and memories that I will cherish all my life. But at the same time, it's not very nice to drive. If I was going to build myself a daily driver that I would use regularly, surely I would buy a vehicle that was nice to drive. It wouldn't be this. You know, some people have asked, this is your new Overlander. No! No, this is fun. This is a flashback. This is nostalgia. And I have this thing going in my head all the time. What are you going to do with it? When are you going to do it with? You know, and I have to tell myself, it doesn't matter what you do with it. It's not important what you do with it. What's important is not letting that affect this. The fact is that I've got myself my third Range Rover Classic, and it's it's an old car, and we have all agreed that there's a better than 50% chance that I will make it all the way to Western Australia without mechanical difficulty, and that if I have to do something, it might be quite easy for me to do, given the space I've got and the tools I've got, as long as it's not overly complicated, and then I'm able to diagnose whatever problem appears. There's a good chance that I will make it without difficulty. But then what? Well, hold on a minute. The purpose of this trip is to tell a whole lot of stories. I have volumes of stories that I have never told about my adventures in my first Classic, my first 8 years of off-roading and overlanding. And I have some real stories and real adventures that I will be telling you. And what a great way of conjuring up all those wonderful memories. So if you haven't subscribed already, what have you got to lose? We have some wonderful stories that I'm going to tell over the next 3,555 kilometers.
Let me firstly put that in perspective. I must drive across Australia to take my car home. That's like driving, if I was in Southern Africa, Cape Town to Windhoek, Namibia, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe, on to Harare. Or in North America, Seattle to Detroit. Or if I was in Europe, London to Warsaw, Poland, and back. But with a difference. On my route there is only one large town, some call it a city. It's called Adelaide, and I'll get there in one day. It's the middle bit, which contains mostly nothing. That is worrying me.
Having now suppressed a lot of the noise from the gearbox, I'm now tackling engine noise. I'm going to start with the exhaust, replacing the missing muffler right at the end of the exhaust, replacing that because it's kind of a drumming howl, and sitting in the driver's seat, I'm just hearing this roar behind me, which is probably well over 50% of the engine noise that I'm hearing is exhaust. So I got to suppress that. And then the engine itself, I'm going to have a go at fitting the Britpart bonnet. There's a bonnet lining that they had in their catalogue, surprisingly, for old Range Rovers. So I'm going to try and fit that before I leave. Then I've done all three: engine, gearbox, exhaust.
So you just want to put a resonator in? That front one's pretty much rooted.
Yeah, that one's okay. Eh? It's not great, but what I wanted to do is put something back here. The standard, there's normally a resonator sitting here, and I'm hearing so much noise coming directly from here. I thought if I could suppress that, I'll be in good shape.
That's easy enough. We can just put a resonator in the back.
Okay, because to me, the thing that makes me tired when I'm driving is noise. It's for me a massive factor. Probably the most significant factor. Is that, you say, is the simplest solution for
that? Yeah, without having a modified pipe work.
Right.
That's the simplest way.
Okay, let's do that.
I'll do that.
And that's why I put sound insulation into my troop carriers, because if I can suppress the sound, then I can just do longer days behind the wheel.
Hopefully that will do the trick, but I do have one other trick to try. There are also some preventative maintenance tasks that I wish to tackle.
Right, I want you to meet somebody who's going to help me do the final preparation. How you doing? Good, mate.
That looks fantastic.
Doesn't it look nice?
Yeah.
This is my nephew, James, son of brother Simon. James is an avid four-wheel drive enthusiast and has owned several 4x4s, including 60 Series, 80 Series, Troop Carrier, GQ and GU patrols, and his current flame, a Land Cruiser double cab.
This now is the last stage of preparation work, which includes sorting out some of the electrical wiring in here. The ignition wiring is very untidy. The joints have come loose. It's just basically like a bird's nest, bad. Never mind, easy to fix. The noise inside the vehicle with the engine now still very, very loud. This was supplied by Britpart, and I'm going to do some kind of way of holding that in. It might look a bit crude, and it's certainly not going to be original. I'm trying to get to Perth. Yeah. It might look crude, but it'll do the job. The last thing is wheels, tires, pressures, wheel nuts, and I'm just going to go through with a screwdriver every single pipe, clip, connection I can find, and I'm going to make sure they're tight, particularly the ones in here. From the bottom to the top, so if you can take that up, I'm going to put it on the curve.
Self-tension and
that's right.
Push that up.
Do another one in the middle, like that, and put a pop rivet in the middle, and then this will hold it closed when the bonnet is closed.
Yeah.
Yes, it's crude. I get it. It is crude. It's got to do a job. It's a mess. Look at these. So if I look at this pink cable, it has one join, 2, 3 joins. When it only needs one. And this green one has 1, 2, but it only needs 1. Anyway, we'll sort this out. There you go. There's the electrical installation finished. And you know, whenever you do these things, you find wires lying everywhere, not connected to anything. I found another one there. I'm going to mark this. I'm not sure if this is strictly the right product for this application, but I reckon if I put some of this on the inner panels behind this, it's gonna make a difference to the sound. So I'm gonna grab 2 of those panels.
I have to tell you now that while I appear calm on the outside, inside, I just can't wait to get back on the road again. The effect of COVID on my expeditions meant an 8-month gap without travel, then a short trip, and then another 8 months without getting onto the open road. Normally, a gap, for me, a long one, is 2 months. So I'm itching to leave.
I have a fuel question. I'm going to carry 10 litres of petrol because I have a leaking filler cap. I don't know how bad the leak is going to be, so I can fill up. I can have what I need and lose a whole lot of it, and this is my 10 litre contingency. So I will fill this up only when I'm at those spots where I need the maximum range out of the vehicle, and really it's a comfort factor. I'm hoping I will not need it, but you never know. The spare parts that I'm hoping I won't need will on the top 2 boxes, and then the additional spares which I almost definitely won't need in the other 2. So check wheel nuts, and then I think I'm done. I'm so efficient. It's always better a second time. I think I'm done mechanically. I do need to just check. I've done all the work. What I now have to do is sort out the vehicle interior, because contingency is that I might need to make it a home for a while, sleep in the back. So I got this really cheap and nasty sleeping bag, a just in case measure, and I need to get the battery low down far forward behind the wedged behind the seat, and that means I have to unplug it from the fridge because the fridge cable doesn't quite make it, and I have to reroute the fridge cable, which I shall do. This goes down here like this. And that is gonna go into there. And the great part about this box is that I have plugged in with an Anderson cable my breakout box, all my USB things, everything else I need. I actually don't really need that now because this is now down here. I can take my USB and plug them straight into here, which I'm going to do, but I'm going to leave that attached because I never know, during the trip I might need it. So I'm just going to leave it attached, lying on the bottom here. I have an inverter which I need for charging my new camera. I have not rigged up yet a system where I can charge it off 12 volts. So that's the purpose of that inverter there. So I would put my pillow here like this, and I could curl up like this and get those seat belts out of the way. That's not that uncomfortable actually. Well, it's not comfortable, but I have shelter, and it's not terrible. Really, it isn't terrible at all. You've got to remember that I'm on my own. And when you're on your own filming the car, It's a bit difficult when you've got lots of traffic. You can't stop the car, set up a camera, point the camera at the car and drive the car by. It's even difficult to use a drone in these situations. So most of what you're going to see now is me in the car. If I had somebody with me, things would be different, like now. Last bit to go into the car.
It's been 9 weeks since I purchased the Range Rover, blind, from the other side of Australia. Now in Melbourne, I collected it, drove it a bit, spent the last 5 days working on it, and 5 days worrying about the journey I'm about to undertake. 3,500 kilometres to my home in Western Australia. Yes, I'm driving it home.
Here we go.
And you find me now dreading the Melbourne morning mayhem as I look forward to that all-elusive open road.
It's a short run this morning, only about 350 kilometres. I wanted to do a short run, and so I have good time to check the car. I will know what my fuel consumption is, etc., etc. And it will take me a good hour, though, to get out of the Melbourne suburban metropolitan area. It's very big. I have Apple Maps running on the phone. I have maps running on the Garmin, and they are telling me to go in two completely separate directions. And on Google Maps last night, my destination was indicated at 447 kilometers. Both of these have given me about 350 kilometers, which is a little less than I would have liked for the day, but a big discrepancy, and yet again proof I'm not using paper maps.
In 800 meters, take the exit on the left to M3 toward Dandenong.
Only using digital maps, and I have 3 digital maps that I'm using, and one of them is vastly different from the others. Paper maps are better, but I don't have paper maps.
Turn right onto Heatherdale Road.
So, phone is saying turn right. That's saying turn left. This is a major highway. Which one is it?
Take the exit on the left to M3 toward Dandenong.
I'm going to go with Garmin. Right, so it's an hour and a half since I left, and I'm still in the thick of Melbourne traffic. And we're about to go into a tunnel. Goes underneath the city. Car behaving well. Clutch is very heavy, so my foot is getting sore. Really looking forward to getting onto the open road. So I consider this as part 3. Part 1 was getting the car, seeing it for the first time, and getting it to the workshop. Part 2 was working on it and preparing the car and preparing myself and packing equipment for the trip. And this is part 3. The final part is driving it across Australia. So we are on the first part of the last part. I don't know if you can see the city of Melbourne behind me there. That's it. I'm going over the big bridge. It's called the West something bridge. Amazing bridge, really big bridge. But anyway, you can get a glimpse behind me of the city of Melbourne. And from here, I'm kind of. Actually, I've still got a lot of suburbia to go, but I've got the worst of the traffic behind me, I believe, because I'm now getting out of the city.
Time to settle back and listen to some music.
Turn in the grain again. The bells began to chime. Time there's no turning back. Keep your eyes on the tracks through the fields. Somewhere there's blue. Oh, time will tell, she'll see us through.
There are few things that I prefer in life than being on the open road. But this is special. It's been such a long time since I've been on the open road, particularly on my own, and in a vehicle that is conjuring up such wonderful memories for me.
Howling out the windy hills, and all the time we took, you should know just how it steals. Keep your hand on the wheel, and through it all, somewhere we know, where time will tell, she'll see us through. And all fire and flames took all we trust. We're kicking up dust. Stations fade just like they do. Oh, time will tell, we always knew.
I think I'm going to listen to that song again. My memories of the Range Rover are coming flooding back to me. I did lots of very, very long trips in the Rangey, and it's just flooding back to me now. The motor is opening up. It's just starting to run. You know, I've noticed that with a lot of cars that I've owned. But the Range Rover, more than any of the others, is that after an hour to an hour and a half on the open road, the motor just starts to, it's sweet, it quietens down, it's got more power, and it's starting, I can just feel it, the engine is so much more willing than it was half an hour ago, and I remember that so clearly now. She's purring. Really, the car is running really, really well. Really well. Very, very well. And I want to thank Stuart and Peter. Thank you guys from Rangey Heaven. You did a great job. You gave me good advice. Yeah, thank you. From the bottom of my heart. And I hope to thank you again when I arrive at my destination. After all, you did say...
If he breaks down across the Nullarbor due to cooling system failure, I will come and help old mate for free.
Well, I've still got another 5 days of this to go. So, it's early days. But I must say, I am enjoying this. I really am enjoying this. And I'm doing 93 kilometers an hour. She seems comfortable. The exhaust is very loud. And while I did that change to it, that didn't make much of a difference. The drumming from the engine has been eliminated from what I did under the bonnet. The gearbox noise has been virtually eliminated because of what I did there, but the exhaust pipe, what I did to try and suppress the exhaust noise, didn't help much a bit. It's loud in here. And I think that's
what's keeping my speed down more than anything else. I reckon my average is going to be somewhere between 90 and 100. That's fine. That's fine. I'm in no rush. Time to tell a story. And to do this, I've taken a narrow track off the main road for some peace and quiet. Up this little track. So, why Range Rover? I was born in England. When I was 6 years old, we moved as a family to the then Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, and South Africa. And we stayed there for 5 years, and in 72 we returned to England and didn't like it much and wanted to return to Africa. But before we went back to England, my father, who was very adventurous when it came to his travel destinations, took the family to the Okavango. The Okavango is an area that I have come to adore. I've been there many times since. And during that time, he filmed the adventure on a Super 8 camera, and I recorded sound on a little tape recorder.
Approximately 10 o'clock, and I can see many palm trees, and we are traveling in a narrow stream.
It opened my eyes, and it opened my mind to the fascination of bush travel, wilderness travel, and wildlife, and it was the trigger. But we drove in a Triumph 2000, and amazingly, we traveled along these gravel roads through the middle of nowhere, and the car stayed in one piece. Shows you how well they were made. And I remember actually driving along, feeling rocks hitting the underside of the car, and having when we began the journey, my knees were here, and when we ended the journey, my knees were up here because of enormous dents in the floor pan caused by rocks and things. And we had an incredible time, so much so that when we returned to England, it was almost like the single most powerful catalyst to get us back to Africa. It was this like a drug, just this experience in wild Africa, truly wild Africa. It was an extraordinary experience, and I recorded on a tape recorder a baby crocodile that the guy by the name of Lloyd Wilnot became almost famous in the area for his exploits, and he was our guide, and he caught these baby crocodiles, and we held these crocodiles in our hands, and they made this crazy sound. And you can hear my voice in this. I'm 12, and I'm starting my life of reportage on film and audio.
The sky is very dark, and bright stars appear, and the horizon is much lighter.
Helping to cement this love of travel and four-wheel drive was when we were taken deep into the Okavango to an unmade camp. Well, actually, they were building the camp, and they were busy building the runway. And Martin, my brother, we were sitting next to each other in a Land Rover Open Series 2, and we were being driven across by Lloyd, across the runway, this newly made runway, very, very rough, and he suddenly saw a hyena, and he decided to chase it in the Land Rover. And I was sitting in the middle, and we hit a bump, and I came out, was airborne for a moment, the Land Rover continued without me, and then I landed in the back on top of the spare wheel. And I was hooked. That experience meant that when we were back in England, not particularly enjoying it, yearning for Africa, my father bought a Range Rover. He bought it in 1974,
And at the time, you know, my little street in our little English village, a Range Rover was a big deal. It cost him £2,480 at the time. And we drove it around in the UK for 6 months, but to avoid paying UK road tax, we then parked it at Southampton or Portsmouth, can't remember where it was, I assume it was Southampton, docks, and then didn't drive it. And then a month or so later, we as a family caught a mail ship, and the Range Rover was on board that same mail ship. So then when we arrived in Cape Town, I remember so clearly, early in the morning, and the sun was breaking over the city of Cape Town, and you could hear the steam engines.
About 6:30 in the morning, and in Cape Town. The ship is moving very, very slowly. On the starboard side of the ship, Table Mountain, a massive slab of beautiful rock, flat on the top, with many lights surrounding it. And now, about half an hour later, we're right in, and we're very near the docks at the moment. There's a tug. The tug is pushing us into position now. We're very slowly sliding into position into the Union Castle Line docks. This is probably the biggest passenger liner that ever comes into this port.
And again, I gave my little reportage on my tape recorder. And of course, this is film from my father's Super 8 camera.
It's a magnificent mooring. The sun is shining across the water and on the Table Mountain itself. The ship is just being nudged towards the...
We then drove it around the bottom of South Africa, camping along the way and fishing, and it was fantastic. And we now are back in Africa, and we had ourselves our Range Rover, and we found out later that it was the 11th Range Rover to come to South African shores. They weren't made there at the time. They were first assembled in South Africa in 1979. And I remember we were staying temporarily at a friend's place, and I remember my brother and I think we might have been swimming. We were certainly in the garden, and this man walked down and said, "What's my car doing in your driveway?" And he was quite aggressive and angry. "What's my car doing in your driveway? What's going on? What's going on?" And I remember saying to him, "It's my dad's Range Rover." And he froze, and then he walked a little bit closer, and then he walked back, and he's kind of walked in the property around the pool away a bit and looked over the fence, and we went with him, and in his garage was a Sahara Dust Range Rover parked in his garage. Of the 11 Range Rovers in all of southern Africa, 2 of them were next door neighbours. How was that for a coincidence? And he told me about all these wonderful exploits, and he's driven through the Kalahari in his Range Rover, and he had done all of these things, and he was using it properly, and he was telling me stories, and of course I lapped it up like milk. Our first expedition in our Range Rover was to the Chobe National Park, which is right up in northern Botswana. I have been there several times since, but the first visit was absolutely magic. And the wonderful thing about some of the Botswana parks is you are actually allowed to get out of your vehicle. You're camping in the middle of the game reserve with no fences around you, none at all. There is no protection against the wild animals, and as a result, camping in an area like that it's unsterilized by tourism. There are designated campsites where you're supposed to camp, but that's it. That's it. So you are exposed to the wild animals of Africa, and you get to smell them. You get to walk on the same ground as animals. We had elephants walking into our campsite. We had lions around the camp at night. We had hyenas calling. We had baboons barking. I remember lying in my tent recording the baboons barking, and we didn't know what they were at first. And I recorded it on my tape recorder. And we guessed that they were baboon, but it was such an amazing experience to actually be camping with the animals. Where else in Africa can you do that? That was it. I was completely hooked. And of course, when I got my first car, it wasn't a Range Rover. I couldn't possibly afford one. I bought a Ford Escort RS. It was like a rally car. Ridiculous as a first car. I learned how to drive very, very quickly because I spun it. The first day I had it, I spun it twice. And the third time I spun it, I actually hit another car. I won't go into that, but it was a terrible car to learn how to drive with, I guess. Maybe it was a good car to learn how to drive with, I don't know. Anyway, so that was in 1978, and in 1982 I bought myself my own Range Rover. It was a natural, childish thing to want what my dad had. But now let's think about it. What else, what other four-wheel drives could I have bought in 1982 that would have done the job that I wanted? Land Cruisers, very expensive. Jeeps, not particularly reliable. Didn't really want a Jeep. There were some Jeeps that would have done the job, but I didn't, I wanted a Land Rover, and being so much more comfortable than a series Land Rover. The Range Rover is a far better vehicle than a series Land Rover. And I know some of you will argue with me on that, but the fact is that here we have a modern vehicle. This is a vehicle of the modern age, and that is proof. Full-time four-wheel drive, disc brakes, coil springs. That indicates it is a vehicle of the modern age. Whereas Land Rover series, cart springs, drum brakes, and part-time four-wheel drive. Those are more old-fashioned things, particularly the drum brakes. Terrible brakes. Appallingly bad brakes. This has got very good brakes. So it was a modern car. But I wanted to live the dream. The dream had the seeds of the dream were my dad's Range Rover. So that is why I first went with Range Rover. The best car I could have probably bought at the time, which would have done the job very, very well, is a Toyota Hilux. I can't remember the model designation, but the one with the solid axles. Not a modern vehicle by any stretch of the imagination, but very, very reliable, extremely reliable, and actually more practical than this, given what I did with it. But I didn't want a Toyota. Toyotas there was no appeal to me at all. And I was, at the time, unashamedly a Land Rover fanboy. Everything Land Rover was absolutely wonderful. No matter what, they could have dished up anything and it would have been wonderful. But at the time, they were dishing up some pretty great vehicles. Of all of the vehicles at the time that I could have bought and think now that would have done me well, only the Hilux actually has a place where that would have been good. But I tell you this, if I had bought a Toyota Hilux, I probably wouldn't be doing this, what I'm doing now. And I say that because these things take a lot of TLC to keep running. I rebuilt the engine. I basically rebuilt the entire car. With the exception of the front and rear axles, I rebuilt it. So I probably wouldn't have had to do that with a Toyota. And so I wouldn't have learnt. That is why I love them. All right. Doing well today, back on the road. A little issue with the ventilation. If I close everything here, I'm fine. I'm not getting a lot of air. I'm getting some air through the ram vent, but it's not strong and the fan is broken. If I open my window like this, or open the quarter vent, I can actually feel it's actually sucking air out of the cab, which is creating a negative pressure inside. And because the rear tailgate seal is in fairly bad shape,
it's sucking in exhaust fumes because I've got a negative pressure area behind the vehicle. So exhaust fumes are actually being sucked into the vehicle because this is creating a low pressure area in here. And I can smell very unpleasant exhaust fumes. I have to keep it closed. I have no choice. I either suffocate. They're gone. Fumes are gone. So I can't actually drive with the window open. I have to drive with the window closed. Bit of a frustration actually, because it's not hot now. It's warm. I'm going to take off my jersey, but it's going to have to be something I'm going to have to live with. If it gets really warm, I'm just going to have to deal with it. Okay, we have done exactly 370 kilometers and we have used 3.5 liters of fuel. Topping it up was a little bit difficult. I think that we're a little fuller than we were before. I don't want to brim it because I've got the leak, of course. So, but I'm going to now go and find my motel, open the bonnet, look underneath, make sure everything is 100% with the car, and work out fuel consumption. A good run today, actually. Car's going beautifully. So I can smell gearbox oil, but that's not unusual for a Range Rover. The sulfur smell of gearbox oil is quite strong, and now since I filled up with petrol, the smell of spilt fuel, a little bit did come out the back, not a lot. It's not dripping now, so let me get my stuff into the room and then I'm going to have a good look at the car. Tension's good. Yeah, there's quite a lot of grease oozing out of the steering box. A little bit concerning. I'm looking for oil leaks, looking for any sign that fluids are leaking. Fuel system. No leaking around the filter. All good. Engine. Quite a bit of oil from the rear main oil seal, but it is not splashing a little bit on the cross member. There's a little bit of grease that's come off the propeller shaft and splashed against the chassis member there. That's not a problem. That's no oil coming out the diff, nothing coming out the gearbox. Fuel system good, no leakage, all good. Everything's looking. Gearbox's rear main oil seal, yeah, there is oil coming out. It's engine oil leaking out of the rear main oil seal. Mine suffered from that from quite a bit. I will do a quick check of the oil level now. And there's seepage from the gearbox filler plug. It's just seepage. The way to tell is to, if there's oil spatter around the chassis and on the back axle, then you know that you're actually losing quite a bit of fluid. It's nothing. It's dry. So far, pretty good. Fuel consumption, I'm reckoning 17, between 16 and 17. I don't think it'll be higher than 17. I did 370 kilometers. I used 53.5 liters. That is 6.9 kilometers
per litre. That is, wow, 14.5 litres per 100 kilometres. Wow, really? That's good, isn't it? It's very good. That means if I've got an 80 litre tank, I multiplied by 6.9. 552 kilometers in a tank. I was working on 450 to a tank. That's really good news. Really good news.